Hi, folks. Anybody that's new to this screen may not know me. My name is Judith Stein Farrell. I'm the Director of Religious Education here at Triple U. This morning, I'm going to turn on the camera for my other computer. This morning, our Time for All Ages is going to speak to both what Martha's going to talk about later and to each of our own situations, personal situations, as well as what's going on in the wider world. Did I ask a lot of one little piece of time? And it's supposed to reach out, Time for All Ages reaches out beyond adults and beyond kids. So hopefully it's something that everyone can relate to. I've got in my hand this morning, I have a jar of muddy water that I got from my outside my front door. Don't tell my landscapers, they'll get mad at me. And for 2 minutes or so, I'm going to guide you through muddy water meditation, basically. So I'm going to set it up right here. And Paul, if you would be so kind as to spotlight on that, that would be so awesome. And not me on the muddy water. That would. And I'm asking Paul because I think he knows how, whereas I will screw it up. So if not, just pay attention to this screen where I put the muddy water. There we go. All right. So I'm inviting you to sit up straight wherever you are. Put down your breakfasts if you're munching. Put down your cigars if you're smoking. Put down your tablets, the things that are distracting you this morning. And you can do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed. If they're open, I invite you to watch the screen and watch the jar. If they're closed, I invite you to open your mind as I guide you through what you might be seeing. The water will go from murky to a little lighter. If you pay close attention, you will see that every once in a while, something rises to the surface of the water instead of slipping to the bottom and settling on the bottom. If in my gathering of the muddy water, I happen to catch a bug or a critter or an amoeba or some sort, it might be moving around in there, whether we see it or not. By the end of these couple minutes, regardless of what is in that jar, the water will change. There's going to be a little bit more clarity. The heavier, denser stuff will settle to the bottom. The thinner, lighter items will find a home at the top of the jar. It just takes time for all the parts of this ecosystem to come into balance with itself again. Now, if in our curiosity of how it's doing, how this jar is managing, and we pick it up and stir it around a little to see what's inside there, the water gets more mixed up again, less clear. Notice I did not totally shake it up again. I didn't flip it over on its side where all the water would turn black and blechy. It just kind of took a cautious look. And still the settling was disturbed, just a bit. It got a little murkier, got a little denser. This isn't entirely a bad thing. A few pieces of silt that were being held down by heavier items might have been loosened up and were able to rise to the top. Something we didn't know was there showed up. and the water was just dusted up a little bit. As I set it down again, it begins to settle again. It just takes time. You can unspot me, unspot the jar, Paul. And this is my message for our kids and for our adults. A time for all ages that applies to this very beginning of considering the changes that our lives are going through. Together, we're dealing with it, and independently, we're kind of growing and changing in this whole process. And this relates also to the story, the message that Martha will share later this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our speaker today is Martha Kirby. She's a very long time member. I think she's been here since her daughter was a little girl. And so she's kind of a pillar of our community for whenever we need pillars. And she's going to talk to us about who am I? Kind of, I've been looking forward to this all week ever since I heard about it. So I'll turn the microphone over to her and mute myself, and off we go.
Thank you, Paula. No pressure there. Although the music was a little disjointed, we were hearing pieces of one of my favorite songs from Carole King, Tapestry, about how our life has been a tapestry of rich and royal hue. And that's a metaphor that stays with me a lot as we weave our lives together. Have you ever been surprised by finding out something about another person? Of course you have. Usually something funny, sometimes sad or shocking, or not surprised by that at all. How about finding out someone is really not the person you knew him as? Once upon a time, my husband and I and our boss flew to Alabama to attend a funeral for a good friend, Mark, a crane operator with whom we'd worked for almost 15 years. Mark's widow met us outside the church and said, "I need to tell you something before you go inside." Turns out Mark was really Bill. He'd assumed a false identity almost 30 years prior, after walking out of a small hometown jail in the same small town in Alabama we were now in. There's a lot more to this story, complications with him and the sheriff's son, and it was quite interesting. So it made Mark's Who Am I story pretty complicated. Our main thought at the time was, gosh, if only Mark had been here to tell us the story, it would have been a lot funnier. But my Who Am I story, physically at least, is not nearly as dramatic. I am Martha Kirby, 63 years young, a Florida native, a widow, a mom, a sister, retired, and a committed member of this Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. The spiritual Who Am I is a little harder to know and has definitely changed over time. At 17, I believed in God. While cleaning out piles of paper in my office, I found Who Am I? You see how tiny my handwriting was. A paper written for a college foundations class called Search for Spirit. Here is an excerpt that surprised me. In my pre-paper for foundations, I stated that my lack of purpose made it difficult for me to accept the existence of a universal God, even though I could not totally reject the possibility of his existence. I do not know the exact motivation for my change, but I am now able to believe in God, though not in a traditional religious sense. Through a self-initiated investigation of the Unitarian religion, I have come to realize that I can believe in a God of understanding and love and accept Jesus Christ as the Son of God, but I do not feel obligated to accept Christ as the only way to both salvation and God. I prefer to turn to my fellow man through love, cooperation, and understanding. The future of the world will depend not on the judgment of a tyrannical or all-powerful God, but on the ability of man to live together in brotherhood. There was a little bit more in between and 3 pages. And I was pretty shocked to read that I believed in God. I don't ever recall saying that, at least not after Sunday school attendance at the Methodist Church ended. I would have said I was an agnostic, and in later years, a humanist. Fast forward to 2006, when I joined this congregation, after my 11-year-old daughter was forced into the OWL class against her wishes, and then was so happy that she never left. In between being 17 and 2006, I had gotten married, worked hard for the same company, raised a daughter, spent time with friends and family, and gave no real thought to my spiritual beliefs. I didn't realize what I had been missing. I've been heard to say that being a Unitarian Universalist helped me to find my voice. And now, let me add, myself. Who am I now? I strongly believe in the power of love as a verb requiring anxious and conscious effort to make our world a beloved community for everyone. I am someone who believes we learn continuously. Revelation is open and continuous and essential to understanding our world and each other. I am someone who believes in stepping out of my routines and my comfort zone to meet and get to know others who are different is essential in my life. Interracial work in Paramore, the Muslim Christian interfaith discussion group I just completed, staying engaged with family and friends with different political and social views. These activities have enriched my life in so many positive ways. I am someone who believes we each have a piece of the truth. I am someone who wants to listen more and who really enjoys talking. I am someone who is open to new experiences and also likes traditions. I am someone who, just yesterday, while listening and watching a TED Talk, found new understanding from their mention of the yin and the yang, Vishnu the protector, and Shiva the destroyer, stability and change, liberal and conservative. The whole is at least the sum of its halves, and usually more than the sum of its parts. Everyone thinks they're right, and if everyone has a truth, a piece of the truth, then truth might not be absolute. It's something we have to work at to find truths that we can live with together. Learning to understand each other's truths and choose the best way forward together is the answer. Not always easy, and yet essential to the journey. I'm someone who values being a Unitarian Universalist. who strives to affirm and promote our principles every day through my actions towards others, who falls short often and yet begins again right away, who wants to live my values out loud, who appreciates a faith that is more about questions than answers, who sees God, the mystery and unknown spirit of love and life, in the spaces and connections between individuals. I'm someone who is willing to work towards beloved community where all are treated justly and with love. And I've become someone who realizes that contemplative time is necessary. Slowing down a bit has been a good thing. I have faith that a better world is possible and confidence that I can help make it so, but only with the help of others, like all of you and others out there that we want to be part of our community and may just not know it yet. So I still believe in God, only I call it something different. And I no longer cringe when I hear the word. The mystery and spirit of life and how we move forward together. Every time I look out at the screen or the people in our church when we're back together, I see love and feel love and know that we can make it a better place. And it inspires me every time I'm in your presence, and even when I'm not. So this concludes my Who Am I story. My wish this morning is that all of you listening will begin to contemplate your Who Am I, or This I Believe story, and share it with our congregation. My story took approximately 8 minutes. From 5 to 10 is ideal. I'd love to schedule some lay-led services with shared stories from 2 to 3 members at a time. I know there's a world of wisdom and experience in our congregation. Lots of diverse experiences, lots of great writers, and people that can share with dazzling imagery and words and heartfelt stories. So please consider sharing a part of yourself with us. Faith development and spiritual learning take many different paths, and hopefully we are never totally content to stay where we are. Let's share our journeys more often and continue our individual and congregational, free and responsible search for truth and meaning together. That's all I have this morning.
Thank you, Martha. That was wonderful. Thoughtful and thought-provoking. Gather up your chalices. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. My closing words. I am defined by my will to live. From Jaun Quick to See Smith, a Salish Flathead person, sharing her thoughts. All this comes from this book. I don't know if you can read it. It's Every Day is a Good Day, Reflections by Contemporary Indigenous Women. So, from the First Nations of this continent. And with that thought, And I have two thoughts of my own. Wash your hands and keep your distance. Be well, be safe, be happy.